I'm here with Sergeant Major of the Army, retired Tony Grinston. Right, he's telling us we got to call him Tony now. It feels a little uncomfortable. We're gonna do a very serious interview here, as evidenced by my Crocs. Okay, you can see them, right? This is serious, guys. Okay. Now, listen, guys, we're gonna do an interview. He took over as CEO of AER. How long have you been in that slot?
Oh, about 3 months.
Yeah, so pretty fresh still, pretty new. Now, you guys have come to expect both a respect for the institution and honesty. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things, a lot of different topics, some of the challenges that he's faced, and just how he's working through problems, and what he sees for the future of AER. So let's get it started. Okay, so since you've taken over, right, you've probably identified some issues that you want to tackle, some challenges that you want to address moving forward. What are those, and what does your solution look like?
Well, the biggest thing is who we, actually provide services for. We give a lot of money to soldiers, active duty, and their spouses and their family members. But I want to open that up. Number one is we do give to Army National Guard and Army Reserve after they've been on Title 10 for 30 days. I want to open that up and say for all Army Reserve all the time, that's a big ask. So it'll take us a little bit of time. I'm hoping to get that done by the end of the year.
That's massive, though. I mean, we've got people serving that haven't like an actual life outside of Army, right? I love talking to reservists and National Guard guys because they face challenges that active duty guys can't even, you know what I mean? Yeah. They can't comprehend. So the idea that you want to expand that benefit is really cool to me. It would very clearly provide a lot of support for a lot of guys that could be struggling. Now, specifically for AER, I mean, what are the issues that you see across our formation? Is it like not getting the word out? Is it, what are some of the things holding people back from using it?
Yeah, as I travel around, the biggest thing that really holds people back is they just don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I say there's no difference between behavioral health and coming to AER. It's okay to ask for behavioral health help. It's also okay to come to AER and say, hey, I need some help. Don't go to a payday lender. Don't run up a huge credit card debt. Just come in and say, hey, I need help. And they think for some reason it's going to hurt their credit report or it's going to hurt their clearance if they come to AER. That's not true. So I just want people to be comfortable asking for help, and AER is here to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. I'm not going to say where the leader was even, but I did have a leader at one point that just straight up told me officers don't use AER, right? And so I assume that's part of the problem.
That's not
true. And so it's kind of cool to see how things are shifting now. We're kind of getting away from that mentality, like you're never going to use this thing. It's there to be used, right? It's there to support the service member. You've got a ton of experience, right, in the Army, obviously, right? You made it to the very senior level. What are the things that you've taken from your experience in the Army and applied to AER, and what are the things that you kind of had to leave behind?
Well, number one I left behind was my name. Okay, so, well, the reason I did that, for a lot of reasons, people want to say Sergeant Major, Sergeant Major Army, and that's who I was, but that doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be. So that's the biggest thing for transition is I want to be somebody new. I want to take AER. I want to be the best CEO that AER has ever seen.
Right.
And just because I did well in the Army, became the Sergeant Major Army, that doesn't define who I'm going to be.
Sure.
So I'm really trying to, do the best I can for soldiers and their families. And I say, just don't put me in that box. So number one is, hey, here's what you call me. But number two, what really transitioned to me is just leadership. Being a good leader, listening to your employees, listening to your soldiers. That's going to translate. Doesn't mean everybody likes what you're going to say, but just giving them that feedback, constantly tell them what you're thinking about doing. I think that translated, straight from Army to AER. But there's a lot of things that they're still trying to weed out of me. And weed out of them. Don't call me Sergeant Major, just call me Tony. You don't have to run, 10 miles every day, although I still run. So there's some little things that you really got to transition to. But the leadership transitions, but there's some things that I can loosen up just a little.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, we all know anybody who's been in long enough has seen somebody transition and they can't let it go, right? And so it sounds like you're trying to maybe not necessarily form an entirely new identity, but you don't want your identity to be completely tied to your service, which is cool. I mean, it's cool to see. And now you taking over, CEO of AER is not a small position, right? That's pretty cool. Speaking on transition specifically, what are some of the challenges that you saw as you began to transition? You know, I can't even imagine what it's like, you know, did you go straight from Sergeant Major of the Army to out of the Army? How does that work?
It's pretty simple, just like everybody else in
Really?
the Army. I transitioned. I went to the transition course, and then I did switch out in August. I took about 2 or 3 weeks to out-process the Army, and yes, I turned in my own TA-50. It's crazy talk there, I know. So, and they're like, "Oh, this is dirty." No, it was all clean, went straight in. But I did take about 2 to 3 months where I had leave, and I said I'm not going to work for a couple months, and that was just really a time for me to just kind of unwind. Although I did find out that I like to work, and as I destroyed most of my house remodeling, my wife said, "I figured it out. Wasn't the Army? It was you." So it was time for me to go back. But I think having a little bit of time to transition was really good for me. I didn't immediately start work. I did take 2 to 3 months off where I just kind of relaxed, did some home remodeling, played some golf, and just kind of slowed down just a tad.
Sure, yeah. No, that's cool. It's so funny you say that. So on my PCS from Fort, now Cavazos, it was Fort Hood, but the first time I went to Fort Lewis, and somehow it worked out. I ended up taking like 47 days of leave between the 30 I took and then permissive TDY and like the travel days and stuff like that. By the end of it, I was like, yeah, it's time to go back to work. The last week, I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I think that's just part of having like a type A personality. You know, you can't like sit still almost. But no, that's cool. What steps have you taken to kind of implement your vision for the company, right? There's a way that AER is supposed to run, right? But what do you want to see going in the future? You already talked about it a little bit, you know, expanding the benefit, but as far as maybe inefficiencies you've seen, places that you just want to make things better, what does that look like?
I think I really have said 2 really simple things. I want AER to be the #1 nonprofit of choice. And what I mean by that is I want soldiers to think of AER when they need financial assistance immediately, not credit cards, not payday lenders, not anything. I want leaders and everybody to go, "Hey, I'm really struggling financially. Who do I call?" AER.
Right.
And if at the end of the year you've got some funds left over and you'd like to give, I want it to be, "Oh, that's a really great organization that gives to soldiers and their families. Let's give some money to AER." That's what I want. Number one, I want us to be the #1 nonprofit of choice. The second one's kind of internally, is I also want it to be the best small business to work with.
Sure.
Like ever, you know, or a great place to work. And we actually did a survey that said, we surveyed everybody and said, is AER a great place to work? I think that those 2 things go together.
Yep.
If it's a great organization, it's got a great purpose, but also people want to actually work there.
Yeah.
I think what else would you want
Sure.
after the military? So I think that's the direction I'm kind of going right there in the near future.
All right, so how many employees do you guys have? And then I imagine from you to maybe I don't want to say the lowest person, but for lack of a better term, right, the lowest person, how do you make sure that you're communicating up and down, stuff like that? But first, how many employees does AER have?
So officially in the headquarters, we have 36 employees.
Okay.
People think we have a lot more. But what confuses everyone is that we have Army emergency relief officers out at all camp posts and stations Army-wide.
Okay.
They actually belong to the Installation Management Command.
Sure.
There's about 58 or 59 full-time employees that work it
Wow.
all the time. Then there's another 100 or 120 that are doing like a part-time in ACS. It's like, oh, that may not be my full-time job, but if you need an AER loan, you can go to them. So they
Sure.
may have 2 jobs. So all those employees under Installation Management Command don't belong to the headquarters, but we do have 36 paid employees that
Okay.
work right there in the headquarters.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So is that mostly green suiters, civilians, a combination of both?
Yeah, you would think it's like 70% former Army because nobody's still in the Army, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Okay. But believe it or not, it's 50-50, maybe even a little tipped on
Really?
people that have never served. These are just great people that actually want to help soldiers, and maybe they didn't serve for whatever reason, but now they're giving back, and that's what they're doing is working in the Army Emergency Relief Headquarters.
Yeah, that is so cool. I'm consistently shocked. I get recognized every once in a while now, and people like I ask people every time, like, "Are you in the Army?" And a lot of times they say no. I got recognized a couple times in New York. Not a single one of them was in the Army. They're just, I just like it. I just like the content, right? I like the message, and so it's cool to hear that you guys have people working for you that just have a pure passion, right? They just want to help. That's really, really cool. Right, we've talked about your big goals, right? But I'm sure you have, goal 2, 3, 4 all down the line, right? What would those next goals be?
Yeah, the next one is 100%. I want to give 100% of emergency travel.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we do 50% grant, 50% loan. I want it to be 100% grant.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I think about it, every time I hear a story of somebody losing a loved one, all I can think of is that's a financial strain. And you're doing a financial strain, you're having stress in your life because you just lost somebody. Why can't we just make all that a grant?
Right.
So that's my next goal is to make all emergency travel 100% grant.
Okay. And that, I mean, it's the way I think about it is like it's just one less thing to think about during that time. We've all had, whether they're small or large emergencies during service, there's already so much going on in your life. It feels like it'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And so it's really, really cool that you want to expand that benefit and just, I mean, it's great. Just take care of it completely for families.
Yeah.
That's very admirable. What are the things, maybe misconceptions or things people don't know about AER?
Yeah, there's actually so many. There's actually 30 categories, and there's these little things that we do that make a huge difference, I'll say. We give cranial helmets to babies.
Oh, wow.
And most people, like, if you've never had this, you don't know what it is. You don't know how much it costs. But when a baby's born, if it's not covered by TRICARE, and believe it or not, sometimes it's not covered, it's the head is deformed.
Right.
And it's for cosmetic reasons. You don't want your child to have, this, deformed head. You get a cranial helmet. Those things are like thousands of dollars.
Really?
We did over $300,000 in assistance for cranial helmets for babies last year. It's incredible. That's just one of those things. We actually, believe it or not, if a soldier is wounded and they come back and they're inpatient care, we give them a $1,000 grant to replace maybe the items that they've lost. If you've ever been wounded, hopefully you haven't. But the first thing they're going to do is cut all your clothes off, put you in the hospital, and next thing you know, hopefully you wake up and you're somewhere, you don't have toiletry items, you don't have clothes. So we come in and give $1,000, and people say, well, there's that many people coming back from being wounded. The Army Reserve soldiers that were wounded by a drone attack out in Jordan, those 3 Army Reserve soldiers, we gave them $1,000 each when they came back. So
wow.
we're still doing things like that. Those are the little things that we're very proud of, and that's why I love my job.
Yeah. It's funny. We have all these programs across the DoD, but specifically the Army. It's such a large organization, and it's almost like if you hunt long enough, you'll find what you need. You know what I mean? And so that's really cool. So if you get wounded in combat or you get wounded somewhere, you're not going to have to worry about those basic items, right? Which I imagine, depending on where you're at, can be a significant stressor. That's phenomenal. So we have a lot of misconceptions about AER, what it does, what you can use it for. I mean, what would you tell people if they're in some kind of financial dire straits? Like, should they come at least try?
Yeah, 100%. I'll give it to answer for 2 people. Number one, this starts with you. You got to be able to ask for help. The second one is for the chain of command or anybody in that assistance is if you feel this is a valid need, keep asking. There may be somebody that says no, but until it comes to me, that's the final answer. So all those exceptions, if you say they haven't paid for this, please ask and get it to me, and I'll give you the example. 2 weeks ago, there was a soldier, and it was actually an Army Reserve soldier, and they had a death in the family. I believe it was the father. And so they had to leave work. They couldn't afford their house payment because they were actually trying to take care of their father and the funeral expenses.
Yeah.
I already told you they weren't on Title 10 orders. They asked, said, hey, can we help them out with the rent? And they brought it to me, and we said, yes, of course.
Wow.
So that's what we do.
Yeah.
But don't let that stop. If you're a leader and you feel like this is a financial strain that's happening with the Army National Guard, Army Reserve, or an active duty soldier, and somebody along the way tells you no, just keep pushing.
Yeah.
And I call that leadership.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's
yeah,
phenomenal.
just
Wow.
keep asking.
That's incredible. So truly, I mean, the answer to every question you don't ask is no, right? Just keep asking. I mean, that's amazing. So you've got some at least decently wide left and right limits to what you guys can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got it really well.
Well, you heard it from the man himself, right? This is retired Sergeant Major of the Army, Tony Grinston.
I thought we were going to arm wrestle.
All right, here we go. I'm going to ask how many employees you guys have.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know that number?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I would hope.
You don't even have to edit that.
You guys are so handsome up there. Are you guys playing footsie under there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually,
He's got a crock.
yeah.